Although we could be some years away, and it's sure to be after the release of Grand Theft Auto 6, Red Dead Redemption 3 is on the cards. Welcome to the video, you're listening to Phil of VicXGaming, and today we're taking a look at what could be the potential setting for the fourth installment of the franchise, including protagonist, location and story. Before we begin, I want to give a huge shout out to a YouTuber called WAXYYY, whom some of you may already know, whose recent video, titled What Red Dead 3 Shouldn't Be About, was a heavy inspiration behind the making of this. I'll leave the link to his channel in the video description below, which is something that I highly recommend to you guys to take the time and check out. I also posted on social media platforms for all your thoughts on who should be the next protagonist, so some of them may be included in today's video. I hope you guys enjoy the following. Now let's get straight in. Jack Marston. One of the more popular opinions is that the protagonist should be Jack, as he was the last surviving member of the Van der Linde gang that we're aware of. Many have wondered what had happened to Jack after the death of his parents, John and Abigail. Although there's a now famous Easter egg in Grand Theft Auto 5 where the player can find a book titled Red Dead written by one J. Marston, there isn't a whole lot more detail to go on about his life after the final moments of Red Dead Redemption. There is something of interest though about the year of his mother's passing, 1914. 1914 saw the beginning of the Great War, in which a total of 30 nations declared war upon each other, respectively forming into two separate factions, the Allies and the Central Powers, lasting up until 1918. It's highly possible that Jack was drafted into the war to fight for the Allies, as at this time he was around 19 years of age. In my opinion, this would be a very interesting take, as the story could be told of his life on the front lines with elements of flashbacks to his upbringing, mainly parts we didn't get to see in either of the Red Dead Redemption titles, such as his time with Angelo Bronte, or when he was taken by Agent Milton for example, or some new moments entirely. This would also give us some new scenery too, as the entire game wouldn't be limited to the American frontier setting. The formation of the gang. Another potential story is that instead of going forward in time, we can go even further back to the original formation of the Van der Linde gang. It would probably lean more towards Dutch as the protagonist than Hosea, as Hosea was more the pacifist of the two, and having him as the lead may not be quite as action-packed. It could tell a story of Dutch from an early age, with such events as the separation from his mother, his father's death during the Civil War, to beginning a life of crime, meeting Hosea, and slowly building the posse of outlaws over time. It should also give us the lore behind the man, forming who he came to be before his death in 1911, and why. This tale would be told in a series of timelines, as each member of the gang joined over the decades, and how they came to be. These stories can be learned during campfire talks in Red Dead Redemption 2, but in this, it could give us a lot more insight, and also show us all of the gang members' development over time, and introduce us to some of those whom we never got to meet, such as the Calendar Boys, Jenny Kirk, or Hosea's wife, Bessie. Arthur Morgan expresses to Tilly at one point that there was a traitor in the camp previously, so we could learn more information on this too. The story would take us up to and include the Blackwater ferry heist as its final mission. Sadie Adler and Charles Smith. One tale that I know a lot of people will be interested in is that of Sadie Adler after she deported to the South in 1907. During the epilogue of Red Dead Redemption 2, Sadie expresses that she is thinking of moving to Mexico to begin a new life, possibly working security. It would be interesting to see how Sadie continues on with her life and what she ended up doing, and if she learned to love once more or forever lived with a broken heart. Charles Smith would also be an interesting character to play as just like Sadie, he survived the initial downfall of the Van der Linde gang. Charles stayed with the Marston family until 1907, where he then left to head north to Canada after seeing John and Abigail's family life and wanting something similar for himself. His strong physique and fighting ability could introduce a more hand-to-hand combat style as the Wild West days, where everybody was using guns, became less and less frequent. Mexico with an entirely new character. Players of the 2010 Red Dead Redemption seem to love travelling south to Mexico, so it's a little peculiar as to why this wasn't included in the later 2018 title. So why not have the entirety of Red Dead Redemption 3 set in the more southern setting of Nuevo Paraiso? We could also be introduced to an entirely new character, who was possibly involved in the revolution against the government that we witnessed in 1911, which put the entire country at war with itself. As much as we loved our time as Arthur Morgan and John Marston, this would give the franchise a fresh new look and feel. Depending on what year the game would be set in, the player could cross with a much younger Javier Escuella, or potentially an older Sadie Adler. Javier Escuella or Bill Williamson. I know we touched on before about the history of the Van der Linde gang, but Red Dead Redemption 3 could delve deeper into certain characters. Bill has an interesting history involving an alcoholic father who slowly lost his mind due to excessive drinking. Similar to the Jack Marston theory, Bill's childhood could be told through a series of flashbacks as we take control of the character during his time fighting against the Native Americans. Bill suffers from a form of post-traumatic stress disorder, which could play a big part in his character development. He also had a sexuality preference which he kept hidden. This could provide a taboo relationship story of love all by itself, and how Bill struggled to deal with disapproving eyes. Javier Escuella, although his age is never given, is estimated to be in his mid-20s. This, if Rockstar chose to give the man the main role, would make him a very young protagonist. Javier grew up in Nuevo Paraiso, and just like Bill, suffered the upbringing of an alcoholic father. Once again, this is something that has the potential to be told through a series of flashbacks. Javier became a bounty hunter by trade, but soon turned into a revolutionary after witnessing his uncle and 4 other men being castrated and fed to the pigs following a dispute with the government. After killing a powerful former military man over a girl that they were both in love with, he fled to the United States. This is an interesting tale within itself. Both of these stories could lead up to the day that they met Dutch van der Linde. John's father. If Rockstar decide to go even further back in time, the player could step into the role of John Marston's father. Little is known about the man, only that he was of Scottish heritage and met John's mother, a working girl who unfortunately passed during the birth of her son. He and John seemed to have a close relationship before his death, when John was just 8 years old. They lived in Chicago, Illinois, which would once again give us an entirely new setting. Although at one point he was blinded in a bar fight, the game, as best to my knowledge, doesn't declare whether this was both of his eyes or just one. Just one eye seems more probable, as his son John, during 1911, can be seen wearing a single eye patch over his left eye, possibly a nod to him, so it would be an interesting tale to see how he adjusted to life as a father or in general after this. Rockstar Games could also have us step into the boots of Arthur's father, but considering he was abusive to his son, I find it highly unlikely that they'd want to go down this path. Also, in both cases, the fathers had passed away, and it's probably about time that Rockstar stopped killing off its Red Dead protagonists. Varying members. Although unlikely, there are a few characters that Red Dead Redemption 3 could feature as their lead roles. The Calendar Boys, Davey and Mac, might be an interesting fit, as they were both young fighters. Seeing them grow up as brothers, staying by each other's sides, and falling into a life of crime could tell an interesting story. Also, the Bell family. Micah always had a reputation as being a hothead, irrational and uncompassionate, but what about his brother, Amos? Although Amos originally followed in both his father and brother's footsteps, pursuing a career in criminality, he eventually turned his life around. At some point, he fell out with Micah, later stating in a letter that he would kill him if he came within 50 miles of either himself or his family. It would be an interesting story to experience the events that led to this. And what about everyone's favourite uncle? Although he's earned a reputation as being lazy, he's a lovable character who's wise in his own way, I suppose. Uncle tells stories of his past on occasion, and although many believe that these are heavily fabricated, there may be some aspects to truth in them. It would be interesting to find out just why he was once called the one-shot kid, if you believe the stories are true, and given by his age, a younger version of Uncle would also set us in an entire new time and setting. Landon Ricketts. This one I'm personally hoping for, and I'm sure most will agree, is to step into the role of legendary gunslinger Landon Ricketts during his days as a shootist. Tales of the man were told throughout the years and often publicised in children's books, showing us that he was a much-loved public figure. His reputation in duels was matched by no other, as he states himself upon meeting John Marston in 1911 that he must have been the fastest gunslinger of his time, as he's the only one left. I think that most would love to see the full story behind the man, his family life, what led him to become a shootist in the first place, and how and why he chose to live out the remainder of his days in Mexico, acting as a guard for the small village of Chuparosa. Landon was a character that everyone fell in love with, so I think, for what it's worth, that having the man as the primary antagonist for Red Dead Redemption 3 would be a smart decision by Rockstar. So who do you think would be an excellent choice of protagonist and setting for Red Dead Redemption 3? Do you agree to any of the above, or do you have a different opinion on the matter? Whichever it may be sure to let us know. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. You all know what to do if you did. If you wish to get in touch, you can find me on Instagram, that's at VicXGaming, or simply use the comment section below. If you'd like to see me cover anything specific on any game you like, feel free to ask, and I'll always try to put something together for you guys. And don't forget to check out WAXYYY's channel, which you'll find linked in the video description. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil, and I'll see you in the next one.